r/NoSleep. Posted by u/popular tangerine 23. I work at a gas station where strange things happen. When I finish high school, I started working at a gas station near the town where I live. The first weeks passed normal at work except for a couple of strange sounds that, according to my partner, and only friend, whom we will call Spooky, he said were the old pipes creaking. Everything was quiet until that Halloween night. I remember going out to throw out the garbage and smoke a cigarette. When I turned on the lighter, I saw that on the back wall of the gas station there was a strange symbol marked on the wall. At first, I thought it had been some group of young people who had nothing to do, and to kill time it seemed a clever idea to do a graffiti on the building furthest from town. After observing it for a while, I noticed that it was not painted with what they had made that symbol. It seemed as if it had been marked with fire. When I ran my finger over it, I noticed that my finger stained ash. The crack of a branch in the forest behind me scared me, and I turned around in alarm, but there was nothing. When turning again to see the symbol, it was not there. The wall was intact, as it always had been. I thought I was freaking out about the symbol, since it would not be the first time I have seen something that is not there. I suffer from insomnia, and according to the doctor it is something normal among patients with insomnia. Upon entering the gas station again, I saw Spooky cleaning the shelves. I asked him if he had ever seen something strange in the back of the gas station, that I have not seen in this gas station. He said something uneasy. I asked him what he was referring to, and he just answered, "A lot of strange things happen here, you'll notice." Helped Spooky finish cleaning up the place and finish my shift. I got into my car, and when I turned on the lights, I observed someone staring at me. I thought it was someone who was just passing through until I saw that he was not a normal person. He was dressed in very baggy clothes and wearing sunglasses, which was very strange since it was almost 4 a.m. Then I started to notice strange things about him. The first thing I saw were his arms. They were thin and long, extremely long, almost reaching his knees. I will never forget his face. His skin was yellowish, he wore a beard, which for miles you could tell was false, and what disturbed me the most at the time was his smile. It was a smile that seemed threatening and covered from ear to ear. I could see her red eyes through the sunglasses. I started the car fully and started. I was so scared that I did not even notice when I left it behind. The next night when I got to the gas station, the first thing I did was look for Spooky. He used to live inside the gas station warehouse. After a while of looking for him, I gave up and went to the counter where I started to see the cameras. Security. It took a while to find the videotape from the night before. Yes, we still use VHS tapes to record, and there we were, that thing and me watching each other. At that, Spooky came in shouting that he needed urgent help. I got up from the seat and approached him. I asked him what had happened. Spooky was only saying something about people in the forest. But hey, my laptop battery is running out and my turn to go to work is approaching, so I say goodbye for the moment. Welcome to my day-to-day at the gas station where I work. The next story of this video. Posted by u/horrornoob. If you see hairy insects in your house, kill them if you can. Call an exterminator, and get out immediately. I recently moved into a new apartment. It's pretty much a hassle to live there. It's like the size of a small room. The room I had when I was 8 was better than this one. It was the only one I could afford after switching cities for a new job. The apartment complex was new. There weren't many tenants in this place. There were 5 rooms in the quarter where I belonged. Only 3 had tenants in it. I'm at the farthest corner next to the window. The other tenant was next to me. The last was near the stairs going down the reception. I was on the 2nd floor. The first month was uneventful aside from my rude neighbor occasionally blasting bass-enhanced music late at night. At the start of the 2nd month, I saw it. It was in the corner of my room. I took out my slippers in case it jumps towards me and approached it to get a close look. That was the first time I saw this hairy insect. I was not sure exactly what it was. The insect was covered with, or should I say, made up of hairs. If you look close enough, you could faintly see its thorax/body, which is roughly the size of a common house cockroach. What sets it apart was the way the hair works around its body. With that in mind, I'm gonna call them roaches from now on. The hairs were like body parts. Curly hair covers up its body. The amount of curly hair it had made it look like it was twice the size than it was. 2 straight hairs were protruding from what I assumed was its head. The straight hairs acted like their antennae and were moving around similar to how a cockroach moves its antennae around. Lastly, 6 wavy hairs extended from its body which acted like its legs. All hairs looked shiny like hair gel was applied onto it. I didn't nope out of there because I wasn't really scared of insects that much. I didn't kill it that time since I found it intriguing. I took out an empty jar and placed it over the roach. I then carefully flipped it over so it can be placed inside, where I also placed the lid. I then made a few holes in the lid. I took it out of reception to show it off to the caretakers, but nobody was there. It was late at night anyway. I then planned on showing it the next day, where I also had lots of time since it was a weekend that day. After waking up and doing my usual morning routine, I took the jar containing the roach. That's when a second roach appeared next to it outside the jar. They were facing each other as if they were communicating. It was slightly smaller than the one in the jar. I went to get something to catch it. After getting another spare jar, I returned but saw that the other roach was not there anymore. I brought the jar. Oddly, there was no one in the reception at that time. It felt like I was the only person at that time. I went back to my room and did my usual routine, where I spent most of the day browsing job sites, sending applications to multiple companies, playing video games, and sharing some memes in my spare time. I did all those stuff until it was 8 p.m. I could see 3 more of those roaches, but I shooed them away. I was surprised at how fast it moved. It moved just as fast, if not faster, than a regular cockroach. I had the idea of taking a photo of the roach to show my friends what it was. Sadly, there was no internet at that time, so I just kept the photo. Out of boredom, I took the jar containing the roach and shook it a little just to get it to move. The roach was not moving much, so I thought of giving it something to eat. I knew cockroaches eat almost anything, so I just took some spoiled food from yesterday and put it in the jar. It was not eating any of it. I then tried different foods, but it won't eat. The roach was tilting down as if it was becoming unconscious or dying. I then took it out of the jar and let it out. I poked it around a little using a pen from my desk. It won't budge. I then took another pen and used both pens to set aside the curly hairs to see the inside. As I leaned forward to get a closer look, it then jumped on my face. The shock caused me to jolt back and fall from where I was seated. It knocked me out for what I guess a short amount of time. When I woke up, I felt something wrestling on my scalp. It felt like something was pinching my hair strands. I grabbed my head and felt curly strands of hair on my hands. I then felt something bite me. It felt like I was cut with scissors. When I looked at my hand, it only left a small wound with minor bleeding. I got up and saw that the roach in the jar was not there anymore. I washed my hand and put some ice on my head. I then slept with a blanket covering me from head to toe for protection. I woke up in the middle of the night. I felt some rustling under my blanket. It was dark, so I got up and removed the blanket. What I saw filled me with terror. A swarm of those roaches almost entirely covered my room. I looked down and noticed my blanket had holes on it, which I guessed was their attempt at reaching me. One by one they jumped and crawled at me. Most landed around my torso. Some landed on my legs. All of them had the same destination, which was towards my hair. It was horrible how I could feel those roaches climb up my body and my face. While that was happening, I swiped them away, kicking and stepping on the ones on the ground while going towards the door. When I reached the door, I went out. More swarms of those roaches outside attempted to do the same thing as the ones inside my room. I can already feel some munching on my hair. It was everywhere. I knocked on my neighbor's door to get inside. After around my third knock, the doors opened. The stench was overwhelming. 2 mangled corpses and swarms of roaches inside. I had no choice. I powered my way through the swarm to reach the stairs. On my way, I noticed my neighbor occupying the room near the stairs. He was completely bald and had torn clothes. He was covered with those roaches but was still alive. His room had double the number of insects than mine and is overtaking him. I went in to try to help him while the roaches were also swarming me. Luckily I found a broom he had and brushed the roaches off of him. I grabbed his hand and went on our way down. While going down, I was still struggling to get those things off of me. They were even in my clothes. The other tenant, however, was covered with wounds, bald, and had no other facial hair. The first floor was a little safer since there weren't many roaches around. I shook my clothes to make sure I got all the roaches out. Since it was relatively safe, I started a conversation with my neighbor. "What happened here?" I asked. "I don't know. They just suddenly appeared out of nowhere." My neighbor replied in a shaky voice. "You okay?" I asked. He suddenly started coughing and then started choking. Before I could help him, he vomited. His vomit had a mixture of blood and some much smaller roaches. Some were roughly the size of young cockroaches while the others were the size of a penny. My neighbor got unconscious and some of those smaller insects are crawling out of his nose. I dragged him outside and called for help in the reception since I left my phone in my room. Help arrived, an ambulance, and some police were on the scene since I reported dead bodies there. A man and a woman in a coat and tie arrived. "We'll take it from here," the woman said, while the guy was surveying the scene. In the ambulance, I got to check my reflection. I didn't notice that I had lots of wounds but not as bad as my neighbor. My neighbor had to be driven to a hospital. I have a lot of bald spots too. It puzzled me why those roaches would attack people if it were only after our hair. That was yesterday. I'm currently at my friend's house. I researched today and learned that we have hairs inside our bodies. It seems that when people run out of hair outside, they look inside. I have lots of unanswered questions. Like, how were they able to get that many? What are those things? Where did it come from? I don't want to think about it anymore. I was wondering why this isn't in the news yet. I'm posting this on my friend's laptop. Hopefully, my warning doesn't go unnoticed. All I can say are that those roaches are bad news. Kill them if you can. Run away if you can't.